Or this one needs to go like this. Tied up. That's good. Thank you. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Sodanandana Bhajanjana Ranjana Jasodanandana Bhajanjana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Bhajanjana Ranjana Jasodanandana Bhajanjana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading third canto, Status Quo, 16th chapter, Jaya and Vijaya cursed by the sages. Text 21. Jastam vivikta charitair anuvaratamanam Jastam vivikta charitair anuvaratamanam Natyadriyat bharama bhagavata prasangaha Natyadriyat bharama bhagavat prasangaha Satvam dvijanupata punya rajapunita Satvam dvijanupata punya rajapunita Srivatsalakshma kimaga bhagavajanastvam Jastam vivikta charitair anubharatamanam Natyadriyat bharama bhagavata prasanga Satvam dijanupata punya raja punita Srivatsalakshma kimaga bhagavajanastvam Avis? Anyone else? Jaha hu tam Lakshmi Vivikta, completely pure. Charitahi, devotional services. Anuvadatamanam, serving. Na, not. Atyadriyat, attach. Parama, the highest. Bhagavata, devotees. Prasangaha, attached. Saha, the Supreme Lord. Tvam, you. Dvija, of the Brahmanas. Anupata, on the path. Punya, sanctified. Rajaha, dust. Punitaha, purified. Srivatsa, of Srivatsa. Lakshma, the mark. Kim, what? Agaha, you obtained. Bhaga, all opulences, or all good qualities. Bhajanaha, the reservoir. Tvam, you. Translation. O Lord, you are exceedingly attached to the activities of your pure devotees. Yet you are never attached to the goddess of fortune, who constantly engage in your transcendental loving service. How can you be purified? Therefore, by the dust of the path traversed by the Brahmanas. And how can you be glorified or made fortunate by the marks of Srivatsa on your chest? Please repeat it. O Lord, you are exceedingly attached to the activities of your pure devotees. Yet you are never attached to the goddess of fortune, who constantly engage in your transcendental loving service. How can you be purified? Therefore, by the dust of the path traversed by the Brahmanas, and how can you be glorified or made fortunate by the marks of Srivatsa on your chest? Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. It is said in the Brahma Samhita that the Lord is always served by many hundreds of thousands of goddesses of fortune in His Vaikuntha planet. Yet because of His attitude of renunciation of all opulences, He is not attached to any of them, to any one of them. The Lord has 6 opulences: unlimited wealth, unlimited fame, unlimited strength, unlimited beauty, unlimited knowledge, and unlimited renunciation. All the demigods and other living entities worship Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, just to get her favor. Yet the Lord is never attached to her, because He can create an unlimited number of such goddesses for His transcendental service. The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, is sometimes envious of the tulsi leaves which are placed at the lotus feet of the Lord, for they remain fixed there and do not move, whereas Lakshmi Ji, although stationed by the chest of the Lord, sometimes has to please other devotees who pray for her favor. Lakshmiji sometimes has to go to satisfy her numerous devotees, but Tulsi leaves, never forsake their position. And the Lord, therefore, appreciates the service of the Tulasi more than the service of Lakshmi. When the Lord says, therefore, that it is due to the causeless mercy of the Brahmanas that Lakshmiji does not leave him, we can understand that Lakshmiji is attracted by the opulence of the Lord, not by the Brahmanas' benedictions upon him. The Lord is not dependent on anyone's mercy. For his opulence, he is always self-sufficient. The Lord's statement that his opulence is due to the benedictions of the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas is only to teach others that they should offer respect to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, the devotees of the Lord. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Rave Namaha. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesha Sunyavari Paschatyade Shatarine Jayo Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we are reading the prelude to the pastime of Jai and Vijay becoming Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha and becoming adversaries of the Lord in the forms of Nishingadev and Varaha. So, of course, this is a very specific detail in this interaction that has been going on for quite a number of verses. And Prabhupada describes practically in every purport the importance that the Lord is showing here with this example of respecting devotees, Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, he says. Buddhijan Prabhu, in his summary of the Bhagavatam and his commentaries, based on what Prabhupada has explained, he says that this is, at least this section, is a pastime that teaches us humility. He says that in this instance, in these few verses that are being described here, everyone manifests their humility. So the Lord becomes humbled by the whole situation because, as he explained, the doorkeepers, Jai and Vijay, have offended the Brahmanas. So he's offering his apologies to the Brahmanas on behalf of Jai and Vijay. So he doesn't have to, but he does it, just to show us. He is one of his characteristics, one of his opulences is detachment. So he's the Lord. He doesn't have to ask forgiveness from anyone, but he does, just to show us the example of humility, like that. In the same way, the Kumaras, they express repentance for becoming angry, and also Jai and Vijay, they also fell, at fault because they have become angry at the Kumaras. So Prabhu explains that this is everyone becomes humble, and he's quoting different parts of the purports that Prabhupada presents in this chapter, 37 verses, I think it is. Where Prabhupada explains that this is the Vaikuntha atmosphere. I mean, something happened, right? It's like a short circuit. Sometimes here, I mean, in India it's quite common. Every so often the light goes off and nobody makes a fuss. Here, as soon as the electricity goes off, then everyone puts in the group, no electricity. It's like a bit of a shock for a few minutes until Ajita Prabhu says something or someone says, oh, this happened, this, that. And then everything is restored. And you can feel the calmness of everyone. Yeah? But in India, this happens all the time. It could be a whole day sometimes. So it's like a little difficulty that manifested. At the end, towards the end of the chapter, the Lord explains that this is actually my desire. And the acharyas have commented that when the Lord wants to sports, his desire to fight, he chooses devotees like that. And then Jai and Vijay are chosen. So the message, as I said earlier, is that we need to respect Vaishnavas, we need to respect devotees, brahmanas. So the question is, as the known teacher of Gurukul in the 80s and 90s, Anmatata Prabhu used to say that whenever we analyze something in philosophy, I don't remember the Sanskrit words he used, but the first thing is that we have to analyze why this is happening. Mm-hmm. Why this pastime? Why humility? Why the devotees? Why? That's the first question. Why? And we need to reflect on this. It's not that we just read and, after a few pages we don't even remember what we're reading. That's in my case. I'm not saying anyone else, but, then I have to go back and, what am I reading? Yeah? Because sometimes we get dissociated from what is that we're reading. So it's important to ground ourselves when reading these pastimes. Why devotees are important? Why is it that the Lord is emphasizing respecting Vaishnavas? Prabhupada ends his purport. He says, the Lord's statement that his opulence is due to the benedictions of the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas is only to teach others that they should offer respect to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, the devotees of the Lord. So that is our first question. Why the devotees? Why not directly the Lord? It's not my problem if these devotees are doing this or that. Even sometimes commit mistakes, sometimes abominable mistakes, as it is explaining in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 9, text 30. Apichet sudaracharo. Krishna is so emphatic. He says that even if they commit most abominable activities, and he gives a few other details about how the devotee reacts to that, quickly becomes righteous, so such devotee need to be considered saintly. So there is emphasis of respecting, worshipping the devotees. Mother Parvati asked Lord Shiva, which is the highest worship? What's that verse? Aradhananam sarvesham. So Lord Shiva says that of all worships, Radharani, Arhada means worship. The one expert in worshipping. Aradhanana sarvesham. Vishnu aradhanam param. The worship of Vishnu is the highest. Vishnu aradhanam param. Tasmat parataram devi. So, my dear Devi. Therefore, tadiyanam samarachanam. So the worship, the highest worship is for the devotees. And the acharyas explain that also. Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada will repeat that acharya upashanam, that the acharya, the devotee, the Vaishnava, it's meant to be worshipped. It's crucial. Also, the Lord explains in the Bhagavad Gita, find some Jnanina Tattva, someone who has seen the truth, someone who has realized the truth, and worship them. This is in plural, right? Worship them. And ask from them humbly and render service. Why? Why the Lord is encouraging everyone to accept devotees? Why Lord Shiva says Vaishnavas are the highest, even higher than worshiping Vishnu? That seems like it's a bit contrasting. Why? That's the question. I mean, I'm not looking for a particular answer, but what are your suggestions? Why Vishnu devotees are meant to be worshipped? Because what? Yeah. Anyway, you say it and I repeat. Only by the mercy of the devotees one can understand Lord Krishna. Because the devotees have bhakti in their heart, and therefore that can be given to others. Yeah?
Krishna says that the devotees are my heart.
Are my heart or in my heart?
They are my heart.
They are my heart. Because Krishna says the devotees are my heart.
I just want to make sure I understand this properly. It's that Krishna worships his devotees.
Yeah.
So then wouldn't it be the highest form of worship to worship what Krishna worships?
Yeah, but the question is why the emphasis on the devotees worship? Why? That's the question.
I think I've heard Prabhupada say that just like parents are so attached to their children, so the devotees of Krishna are Krishna's, they're very dear to him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like giving a lolly to the dog, a lozenge, Prabhupada says. I don't know, but yeah. Yeah. His devotees are
Giving
more
lozenges
dear,
to the dog.
yeah, are more dear to him than anything else. Because like parents, their children are the most dear things to a parent. So he's the ultimate father.
So they are pleased. The parents are pleased if the... Yeah, Prabhupada said many times, but in Melbourne, famous pastime, if you love me, love my dog. There was some conflict about some devotees, I don't want to mention their names, they are known and around. And some people were criticizing heavily one particular devotee, and Prabhupada said, if you love me, love my dog. So, yeah, nice.
The devotees are worshipped because, like Krishna says, he can't even repay his pure devotees. Like say, the gopis, they don't mind going to hell for Krishna. So say you have somebody who will literally die for you, they don't give anything of themselves, how would we pay that back? So Krishna feels the same way. How can I pay it back? That's why they're worshipable.
Right. So you all agree that that's why the worship of the Vaishnavas, the worship of the devotees is even more important in worshiping Krishna, because we may worship Krishna, but if we don't worship the Vaishnavas, what does the Shastra say about that? What is the... What, huh? You said it.
It's a kanista.
It's a materialistic devotee. Prakrita Bhakta, right? I worship my Lord, but I don't care about anyone else. I am the best devotee. Everyone should recognize me. And if not, I'll write a whole thing online, put it on Facebook, paste it everywhere, and show and prove that all this ISKCON movement is in Maya, because they don't recognize me. Right? We have a few of those. A Vedic principle for advancement is humility. And Krishna mentions that in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 13, texts 8 to 12, where he gives the 20 elements of knowledge. And the first one is humility. So offering respect, so worshipping, jayi, Krishna says, manmana bhavamad bhakto majjaji, right? Majjaji means worship me. So what does worship mean? Sometimes we have, or I have, these vague ideas of worship. When I read Bhakti Shastras, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, I generally like to read what is that other devotees are saying. I mean, even Prabhupada's disciples or followers, what do they understand about that? Because I may have a blurry idea of that. Worship means to do something practical, right? Worship means that, the deities are woken up at a certain time and they are taken care of, they are dressed, they are fed, they are protected, right? They are there. Something practical. So, in the same way, serving the devotees is considered the highest service. There is forgot exactly, it's in the 10th canto, where I remember many years back, 2015, 16, somewhere there. So there was a mixed class. Half class was given by Radhana Maharaj, and other half class was given by Jayapataka Maharaj, my Guru Maharaj. And they were talking on this point, the importance of worshipping the devotees or caring for the devotees. And both were citing certain pastimes where Krishna himself says, I have no other interest. The background of that is that, when Krishna goes with his friends, cowherd boys, up the hill and take the calves and they are doing their job, doing their duty, but at the same time they are enjoying. They are playing pranks to each other. Sometimes they steal their lunches and fruits and things like that. So at one point there was a bit of a commotion because I remember exactly the details of the pastime, but the lunches are being hidden of the cowherd boys, and Krishna was very anxious. And he says, my only desire is to have my devotees satisfied. That's all what I want to do. That's my only focus. So the two Maharajas were explaining different angles, how it's so important to please the devotees, to serve the devotees. Why? Because Krishna is happy. Like Mataji said, and Prabhupada said, that if you see people with the dogs are so dear. And if you go like, oh, nice doggy, and they are so happy, immediately they smile, right? But if you go like, this dirty creature or something, right? They get like edgy, right? So it's a principle of love. That's what it is. It's the principle of love, because Krishna loves the devotees, and the devotees have love for him, like the essential verses of the Bhagavad Gita in the Chatushloki. Krishna does mostly a glorification of his devotees. Mat-chita mat-gata prana. They all the time are thinking about me. I am their life. Mat-gata prana. Mat-chita mat-gata prana. They're always talking about me. Bodhayantas parashparam. Katayantas chamam nitya. Tushanti cha ramanti cha. Tushanti cha ramanti cha. They are relishing. Ramanti, they become very joyful by discussing about me. They are my good sons and daughters. So But nothing of this can be manifested if there is no humility, if there is no respect. Huh? So the first two items that Krishna emphasizes in chapter 13, takes 8 to 12, is amanitvam, adambitvam. And mana means, in this case, honor. Just like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in the 3rd verse of Shikshastaka. We know all that verse, right? Trinada pi sunichena. Sometimes we know it, but we don't know the meaning. Trinada pi sunichena, tarora pi sahisnuna, amani. In that case, mana refers to honor. Amani. Amani means I don't want honor. That's the devotee thinking. That's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mana, dena. That I rather should give honor to others. That's the idea. And since Jai and Vijay are going to be turned into demons, right? Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 16, divine and demoniac nature. And I believe that the first characteristic of the demons is what? Damba. Yeah. So amanitvam, no pride. Adamba. Adambitvam. So I always thought these two are the same. It's just synonyms practically. And I don't know if coincidentally, but when Srila Prabhupada comments on each of those 20 items in the purport of 13 chapter, 8 to 12, Prabhupada ends the long purport saying, beginning from practicing humility up to the point of realization of the supreme truth, the absolute personality of Godhead. This process is just like a staircase, beginning from the ground floor. So if there is no humility, what Prabhupada is saying here, there is no higher ground, there's no advancement. From the ground floor and going up to the top floor. Now, on this staircase, there are so many people who have reached the first floor, the second or the third floor, etc. But unless one reaches the top floor, which is the understanding of Krishna, he is at the lower stage of knowledge. If anyone wants to compete with God, as we will see in the pastimes of Nishingadev fighting Hiranyakashipu, etc., he will be frustrated. It is clearly stated that without humility, understanding is not truly possible. To think oneself God, it's most puffed up. Although the living entity is always being kicked by the stringent laws of material nature, he still thinks, I am God, because of ignorance. The beginning of knowledge, therefore, is amanitva, humility. One should be humble and know that he is subordinate to the Supreme Lord. Due to rebellion against the Supreme Lord, one becomes subordinate to material nature. One must know and be convinced of this truth. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, this is the purpose of this pastime, to see the qualities of the Lord, as we know, and we sing in the morning. What is the 5th verse of the Guru Astaka? Si Radhika Madhava Yora Paro Madhurya Lila Guna Rupa Namnam. Madhurya Lila Guna Rupa Namnam. It's backwards. But the name, the form, the gunas and the leelas of Krishna are presented. The Bhakti Shastras, as we often explain, basically has 3 areas. Like when you go to school and you study mathematics, geography, whatever else, chemistry and all those things, if we can have 3 broad categories of what we learn in the Shastra is about Krishna, yes, about the devotees, yeah, bhaktas, and about bhakti. Those three things, the three B's of the Bhakti Shastras. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, because everything was summarized, there's no time, right? The word is about to start, and therefore there was no time. Krishna talks about the demons here in chapter 16, short chapter, I think 20-something verses only. And a few verses are 28 verses. Only a few verses are dedicated to the divine nature. Right? Just a few verses. 5, I think it is. 5. Oh, or less. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So, yeah, just 3 verses. And then he adds another comment, and he says that the transcendental qualities are conducive to liberation, whereas the demoniac qualities make for bondage. Do not worry, O son of Pandu, for you are born with the divine qualities. So, Krishna is emphasizing that these demoniac qualities are what condition us to this material world. So the purpose of chapter 16 is to give us a warning. Whom do we have to associate with? Huh? These qualities we have to avoid. Right? And I don't know in your experience, but in my experience, it's very easy to fall into these qualities or associate with those qualities. Why? Because it takes one to know one, right? Something like that. So when the qualities are in there, the enviousness and so many other things, pride, so it's easy to fall into that trap, the false ego trap. I remember one devotee, forgot who exactly, wrote an article in the Back to Godhead magazine, one of the first Back to Godhead magazines that I read, and he explained that the false ego is like a magnet. Have you had that experience? If somebody insults you, right, out of false ego or envy, what happens? Your false ego immediately arcs up, yeah? Become like a cobra, like that. Oh, how you dare to say that? Huh? So it's a cycle. Magnets, remember, as little kids used to play with those magnets, yeah, and put them together, and right, you turn them, and then they repel each other. So in the same way, Ichchadvesha, Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, this world is basically attachment and detachment. I love you, I hate you. I hate you, I love you, like that. And it goes on and on like that in every species of life. That's what it is. Friends and enemies, friends and enemies. And that's a point that it's mentioned here, that the Kumaras had that quality. They didn't see friends and enemies. They didn't see us and them. Prabhupada explains, and it's known, that as soon as you see somebody different skin color, different language, different culture, there's a difference. Oh, these people they are not my people, right? The other day there was Devagora Prabhu was doing his kirtan on Friday, his concert, mini concert, right? Friday night at the yoga hall. And he says something about Latins. He said something, we're going to play something with Latin rhythm. Any Latin there, say, and then with my wife we went like, hey, Haribo. And then a lady next to us, she went, ooh. So she looked at us, I looked at her, and says, are you Latins? And then I said, yeah. And then she asked, from where? I said, from Ecuador. What about you? From Ecuador, she asked me. And we know Ecuadorians, you have to ask, which city are you from? And then she says, which city? And I said, Guayaquil. And then she says, me too. And it was like oh my God. And it just, what Prabhupada says, that as soon as you meet someone that has some kind of relationship, whether place of birth or something, you know this one, you know that one, you used to go to that beach, like a whole Maya Prajalpa, Anyway, we encouraged her to chant, and she was dancing and all that. So that is what we think. It's us. We are, the best. Latin people or Chinese people or Aussie people, and people from Perth talk about the people in Adelaide, and people in Melbourne talk about, isn't it? It's like a whole thing, yeah? Same thing in India. The Gujaratis, they talk about the Bengalis, and the Bengalis talk about the South Indian talk about everyone. So it's like that, us and them. And therefore, I believe is the Kumaras, towards the very end of the chapter, they request the Lord to give the blessing to wipe out, to dissolve the influence of Rajas and Tamas. Rajas, passion, vision in the mode or understanding in the mode of passion is that we see different. That's in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17, I believe. We see different. But in the mode of goodness or sattva platform, or Suddha sattva, pure goodness, or Brahma Bhuta, or spiritual platform, we don't see difference. Everyone is the same. It's the same spirit soul in everyone. Not only in humans, but also in animals. Then we have a different perception. Right? So if we don't have that vision, it's practically impossible to do pure bhakti. And that's why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma na sochati na kanchati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim lavate param. We need to come to that platform. Now, how do we get to that platform? Starting with becoming humble. Instead of being our nowadays, because people are suffering from depression and anxiety, it's a whole thing that we have to, pep ourselves and, positive affirmations, you're great, you're worthy, you're lovable, the whole thing. I have to say sometimes those things. People are very downtrodden because of whatever they have experienced, trauma, abuse, etc. So there is that line that, we have to, for whatever reasons, I don't even know the person, but, but you're worthy, Spiritually, that is, everyone is worthy. Everyone is part and parcel of Krishna, so everyone has a spiritual worth. And but the problem is that sometimes Prabhupada mentions here, that sometimes we think that we are God. We are God. That's the problem. We are competing with God. God is up there, but I wouldn't mind to be up there. The Guru is up there. I wouldn't mind to be somewhere there, like that. And Prabhupada explains that several times, and then he gives example of the fly and the king. Have you heard that one? The king is there, right? And the fly comes and lands on the king's lap, right? So the fly is sitting on the throne of the king, and the fly may be thinking, oh, this is so good. Everyone is worshiping me. Everyone is paying obeisances, like that. And I remember the first time that I went to Mayapur and I, came my Guru Maharaj's servant. I remember the first time we walked into the temple, the next Mongol Arctic, hundreds of devotees, even this is in the 80s, and still hundreds of devotees. The temple was half size. It's only Radha Madhava with 4 gopis, not 8 gopis like today. Nishingadeva has been installed the previous year, and there was no Panchatattva extension, and there was dirt everywhere outside the temple of Radha Madhava. So remember, we entered, and as soon as we entered, everyone fell flat, paying obeisances. And I remember walking next to him and seeing all these people, and my mind is there having wow, there's hundreds of people. South Americans are quite emotional and passionate and all that. So, but everything was minuscule in our temples. in Peru, in Ecuador, and other temples in South America what I have seen. But this is hundreds of devotees, and even guests and everyone just bowing down to a Swami that's entering, yeah? And then I was like, oh. And then he turned around, looked at me like, anyway, that was my speculation, that don't you ever try to enjoy anything that it's happening, you know? You're not worth it. This is not for you. This is for, you know, he just gave me a look like that, like, you know. So sometimes we may fall in that trap. Not sometimes. Actually, one time there was this conversation, morning walk, and Prabhupada mentioned something about humility. And a devotee said, Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was digging deeper into, you know, the whole humility aspect. And the devotee asked Prabhupada, but couldn't be there a time when we become really humble, and therefore we become proud of being humble, and therefore we fall in Maya? Prabhupada says. The devotee said, asked Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, fall in Maya? You're always in Maya. You don't have to, you know, to fall in Maya. You are in Maya. So that's the issue, that sometimes we don't realize that still we are so conditioned. I am so conditioned. But, now I deserve this because I did this. And if people don't treat you well, or this and that. I remembered in one of the first festivals I was in Perth when I arrived in Australia in year 2000. And there was some festival, and you know, devotees were lining up to take prasadam. So then I saw Burijan Prabhu, and I have read his book before arriving. What was that? My Glorious Master. And then I saw him lining up with everybody, actually towards the end, him and his wife. So I went quickly to, I don't know, Manivanda Prabhu was the temple president then, somebody, and I said, we have to, you know, seat him and this and that. So we were trying to organize something, and then I went to him and I said, Prabhu, please, you know, come and sit, and we're gonna arrange something, you know. That's that etiquette. And I remember his answer was, don't give me too much honor, because otherwise I'm going to start enjoying it. I'm going to get more and more confused. It's good. This is my meditation here, you know. So it is always, every time I have the opportunity to serve in Perth, it's a tussle because he doesn't want to, like that. But anyway, the point here, as Prabhupada explains, is that we have to respect, to worship, to honor the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, because they can give us Krishna Bhakti. And a devotee, Virabahu Prabhu, a spiritual master in GBC in South America, he lives in LA, translated all Prabhupada's books into Spanish. He used to have these sutras or maxims. And one of those sutras was, without devotees, there's no Krishna. Without devotees, there is no Krishna. That was one of his maxims. And I remember the first time I heard it, immediately my arrogant mind would say, nah, but that, I mean, you know. And if you will, you know, question that, and then he will explain. And many times people will question that, and he will explain why. Without devotees, there is no Krishna. Without Prabhupada, where we would be? At least myself, I wouldn't be here for sure. Not only in Australia, but not in this movement. Okay, so we stop. If there's any questions, any points? Everyone is hungry?
Sorry. It was just in the purport. It's just something that caught me.
In this purport?
Yes. Sorry, I might not be able to find it that quickly. You can all go for prasad. Sorry, I'm not finding it.
No?
No, just... Oh, here it is. Lakshmi is attached by the opulence of the Lord, not by the Brahmana's benedictions. So what are the Brahmana's benedictions to the Lord? Or,
This is because here the Kumaras are talking, right? But before this, the Lord was expressing certain things. And he was glorifying the Brahmanas, saying that because of their blessings is that he's fortunate. That his fortune, which is Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, it's there because of the devotee's blessing. You know, like when the devotees or great devatas or great acharyas, they do like this. This is Ashirvad, this is blessing, right? So he considers himself, out of humility, fortunate because of the devotee's blessing. But as Prabhupada says, the Lord's statement in regards of that several verses before, that his opulence or his fortune is due to the benediction of the Brahmanas and Vaishnava, right? It's only to teach others that they should offer respect to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, the devotees of the Lord. And Prabhupada will elaborate on this point further, and he will say that that Krishna doesn't need anyone's blessings. Krishna doesn't need anyone's blessings. However, out of humility, he takes the blessings of the devotees, right? Accepted spiritual master Sandipani Muni, and so many other things we can say. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifest also, right? He led Mother Yasoda to chase him, right? Goes and takes blessing from his parents, right? There are so many instances where Krishna showed that aspect of, or opulence of detachment. And you have to be somewhat detached. If you're not detached, you cannot express humility. I remember the first time I entered the temple, the first time I was working in something like Myers or something, Sears, that's the, like Myers, how do you call it, Myers? So I was there, standing like you with my baggy pants and my suit tie and my 80s style shirt, my long hair, all cool with my Toyota Hilux, brand new, standing parked outside with another surfy friend. He took me to a temple, and I saw all these Shaolin monks jumping up and down, and then pay obeisances, all shaved up, all brahmacharis. And I was standing there, I was like, oh, I'm so cool. Oh, these guys are like, what are they onto, you know? And I remember one of them looked back at me, and later he became a good friend. He told me, he pointed at the floor, and I was like, how would I go, you know, this is so cool, like in a corner like that. And I thought, these guys are going to bash me up if I don't. They all look energetic, so I wasn't humble, I was forced to. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Premanandi.